I have been writing for this man all my life, and he was my soulmate. I didn't think I don't do. You never talk, and you were. Had I knew it was special, I saw her. I couldn't take my eyes off her. I am madly in love, yes, but not blindly. Love is blind. I saw what I chose to see. So I knew everything I was doing was wrong. If you really, really love somebody, nothing in this world can take that love away. Absolutely nothing. I met Martin when I was working behind my mother's pub, and he walked in. And I thought, oh man of my dreams, he was just so handsome, and he ordered a drink, and I sort of couldn't take my eyes off him, and later he asked me my name, and he said he was a policeman, and he asked me if I'd like to go out for a date. Of course I said yes, definitely. He took me out to a couple of places, and was just brilliant. He had that really hard life. You know, he left school, and he went straight into the army, and he worked himself up to a special agent who worked in Northern Ireland, and he worked undercover there, and he had awful experiences there, which obviously made me feel closer to him because I felt, well, you know, this guy can actually trust me and tell me things about his life which are very personal. And even on one occasion, he saw his best friend get shot. You know, he sat there and he cried the first time in my life. I just fell instantly in love. But just 1 week after meeting Martin, Joanne had to return to her home and job 300 miles away on the south coast. When I was sitting on the train, I thought I'm in love, and it was really hard for me to let go, because I could just picture us already just being together. I think it was the next day I actually got this letter from him. And actually in the letter, he said that he loved me. And I thought, this is just not happening. You know, and I just knew at that point that I wanted to be with him. Mine said to me that he's got this £100,000 compensation coming through because he had actually had an accident at work. And he proposed to me that, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we were together? And would you like to come in and live in the Lake District? And so what we did is we took a trip to the Lake District, and he showed me where he used to live, the mountains he's climbed. And you could actually just imagine it, living in this little house, just together, outside a big sort of river. And I said yes, and we were going to get married and have children and live happily ever after. You know, I was absolutely desperate to be with them. He was my soulmate. This is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And I would have given up anything, I remember. Sitting in lunch with my good friends, Gran, chatting about things guys normally chat about. And I know this young lady walk in the restaurant wearing all blue fur coats and a blue hat, looking absolutely striking, devastating. I couldn't take my eyes off her. I had this strange sort of feeling inside me, and I said to my friend Gray, I would have married that young lady. I don't know what it was, but it was physical, something else, but it happened to me. You never happened before, kind of try and find out something about her. Who she was, where she worked, how can I meet her? Try and woo her court. I knew nothing about at this stage that I'd try find information about it. I was lucky she had to do a job, where she had to learn some of the computers and the telex machines, which was very close to where I worked. So what I did, I started to find excuses to be in the area, or maybe try and see there. Go and get a telex, going to fix something in there, any excuse I could. I found a way of trying to be there when she would be there. And I was my approach. There was this aura about that just said, you have to treat this lady differently. You can't go about a normal approach. Something different about Stephanie. And so I thought, okay, I think I have to treat this very, very carefully. Kid gloves, very, very slowly. And also not just that I was very nervous, I never once doubted my original feelings. I've dated other girls, I lived with another girl before, but these feelings I was having for Stephanie were completely different, so I equated that to love. I think my friends, they joked, you know, they thought I was crazy, but I didn't. I might be crazy, but he was right. John's gentle wooing of the mysterious Stephanie was indeed rather slow. After more than 2 years of meeting at the telex machine, Stephanie finally agreed to go out with him. Their first proper date was at a cafe next to Golders Green tube station, when she finally agreed to have a date. She said this place, and I said, yep, fine, I live nearby. So I said, great, got there at the right appointed time. Wait about 15 minutes, early, you know, just to make sure I was on time, and I twiddle my thumbs, the apprehension and nervousness, there was a mixture of all those feelings inside me. And I waited there a number of hours, and she never turned up. I was gasps here, I couldn't believe it. She was something that was taking up a lot of my mind and my heart. You know, it's what I could think of. Why couldn't she get a message to me, Wine, who just come down? Why could she even say she'd bother to meet me when she didn't want to? But I couldn't ring her and find out if I had to wait till I had the next opportunity to meet her, which was hopefully at work on Monday. But I didn't know whether I'd see her. I love being David's wife. We were both in their 50s, and it's not that easy, you think you know, on the shelf. Who am I going to meet? Music. It was a lovely, lovely day. have my little granddaughter there, and we have my son and his wife when I actually walked up and saw David, because I think it really meant something then. You know, it wasn't talked Lars Day or anything. You know, I mean, don't forget, we've both been married twice before, and when you were taking that step for the third time, you really, really do think about it. It was a really, really lovely wedding, and I've got absolutely no regrets about being married. Well, so my thought was the best thing that happened to me, best thing in my life. Wonderful. So I was surprised that you could feel quite so passionately about somebody about my age. It felt like being a teenager in love all over again. It's a wonderful feeling, very passionate, very passionate. Yes, it was good. I never lacked in anything after their wedding. David and Wendy returned home, Wendy to run her pub. David to his job in the docks. I've been loved before, but never loved and looked after and cared for and made to laugh the way David made me. My son actually said, if you can make my mother laugh like that, then you're all right by me. We've been married to 1.5 years, and they were absolutely brilliant. Yes, really good. We were very happy David got promotion. He was earning good money, and everything seems to be going right for us. It was great. The pub was picking up. We were looking forward to a future together. I got a phone call from my eldest son, saying that he wanted to see me. So I went down there, and when I got into my son's house though, they were both stood there. And you know, when something's wrong, and I thought he was going to tell me that he wanted to stay here or something, but he told me that my husband had been trying to kill me. And I can remember I just laughed. I really did. I had told him not to be so stupid. And he said, no, he said, we've got proof. And I said, what proof? He said, there's a tape. When I got into my son's house, they were both standing there. And they said, sit down, nothing. No, I don't sit down, what's the matter? I thought somebody died or something. He said, now listen to the tape, man, please listen to the tape. I said, okay, I'll listen to the tape, and it was awful. Well, you definitely want me to top her. Yeah, I don't mean because I'm amazing, might not guess and find another wife, and I sat on the floor listening to it. And I knew that it was David on the tape. There was no two ways about it, she's worth darkest after I'd have to go. I know everything, I watch you go home insurances and everything. I need a photograph of the bird bush, because I ain't gonna come into your poverty thing like that. No, I want the photograph of her. You can't miss her. She's a great thing. I couldn't understand why he was saying these things. None of it made any sense to me. Make sure she's dead. I don't want to end up looking after a friend, what you will, because I shall that motor of mine just plough straight into her, knock her down, something like that. You serious, she's nothing to me. I said none of this makes sense. I don't have any money, we're very happy. Why would he want me dead, you know? And at the same time is thinking that I knew it was him, but your boys believed the team. Of course they did. They did believe it because they were frightened for me. They were very worried for me. They said to me when I'd heard the tape, you got 2 choices, mother. And the first one I was for them to go round 6. Alt David out, which is not what I wanted. Got 2 very big strong boys. Dave's a big fella, but they would have killed him. They were so wound up I didn't want to see my husband beaten up. And I didn't want to see my 2 sons being held on a murder charge. So I found the police on Sunday, February 27th. The police went to the Beresford pub and arrested David Gibson on suspicion of conspiring or soliciting to have his wife Wendy murdered. Well, it was all very romantic, like it is in the beginning to Nil Lovebirds. What's really good? He was allowed to phone any time of day or night, it didn't matter, because he was working on shifts through the police station. And then he came down about 3 weeks later to come and see me. I introduced him to everybody I knew, because he was just so wonderful. You know, this is the guy you want to show everybody, to, you know, even the neighbours. You know, I was just so proud to walk next to him and to be with him, and just wonderful. I even took him to my workplace because everybody was so excited for me and really happy, and they just thought he was absolutely fantastic, and they were very impressed by him. You know, whilst I was in Poole, he said that he missed me so much and that he wanted to do something very, very special for me. And when I asked him what he said very romantically, that he was going to set off at 4 o'clock in the morning and drive to the Lake District. This was going to be our dream place to live, and it was going to climb the highest mountain, and he was going to get me a rock from the top. And he did. He found me at 4 o'clock in the morning, went before I was leaving, and I think he found me at 10 o'clock in the morning at my mum's pub to say that I've got it. I've got your rock. And I just thought, you know what kind of guy does that? It's got to be wonderful. I must be the luckiest woman in the world. So lucky did you? And feel that 6 months after meeting Martin, she handed in her notice and left her job in Poole, where she'd recently been promoted, when John did meet Stephanie again. All she could say was that there had been problems about getting out of the house to see him. I sort of accepted it, and then we arranged then maybe to make another meeting, okay? I said, yeah, okay, but please be there and all that. Yeah. Why don't you up for your doll? No, can't do that. Second time we were successful. We were able to meet in this little cafe down in the coldest green. We just carried on the sort of conversations we've had from work over a cup of coffee. I try to sort of touch hands and all those sort of things and try to start a system of breaks and barriers and is it right got to go? And I think, do you have to go? As one does. Yes, I've got to go back. I can't be out for long, all right. Okay, can I take you home, make you cook? Nope, it's okay to dashing off for about 2 years, I suppose, definitely. And I will have these long time their stains meeting. And actually in the background of Methyl, there was a bit strange the way that was sort of painting out. Sometimes I knew deep down, I loved to. Can I accepted it, we were getting closer. It all melted out into meaningful relationship. In my opinion, all I did start to understand a lot more was fact that her uncle was very strict with her, which was the reason obviously for these clandestine types of meetings. I only really times when he was away, I didn't understand anything else to her background. So you should just call it the problems at home, okay? There was never sort of explain what these problems were or why she couldn't. Mother wants things a bit strange. Well, you definitely want me to top her with her husband. Remanded in custody. Wendy was not allowed to talk to David to find out why he'd said he wanted her murdered. That motor of mine just plough straight into her, knock her down, something like that. Did you for 1 minute think that he would have done you home? Oh God, no, that was never a problem to me. I knew that he would never ever harm me. When Wendy went to the police to say that she wanted to retract her statement, she was advised to go away and think things over, exactly a week after David was arrested. Wendy went on a cruise to the Caribbean with a friend, a holiday she and David had booked as their second honeymoon. I went over the tape time and time again, and every time things were coming back into my mind, that thinking though, this doesn't make any more sense than it did the first time I heard it. There was no reason why he should want me dead. I mean, if he wasn't happy in the marriage, he could have gone because he knew I didn't have any money. But it wasn't like that. We were both soulmates. I came back, my son met me from the airport, and my son had said to me, if you make the decision the wrong way, that would be it. I've done anything to do with you. And I said, well, with all the respect and love in the world, I've got to make the decision for myself. And I said I've made a decision the following morning. Wendy made a second statement. She still had not seen David. I said, I really didn't think that my husband was guilty of anything. I didn't want to prosecute my husband. I thought all I had to do was say this is a load of nonsense, we can stop it. Now that afternoon, Wendy saw and spoke to David for the very first time. We did fall into each other's arms. And I just said, why, what on earth were you doing? And he was sad and sorry. And, when I said to a bit, David, all right, it's just stupid what you've done, but why say those awful things? And he just said, look, I just got carried away. What David told Wendy that afternoon, and what he'd also told the police when he was arrested, was that he knew he was being tape recorded. He'd gone along with it because he thought the other man would use the tape to blackmail him for more work in the docks. David said if he was blackmailed, he intended using the tape to get the other man sacked. I have the most wonderful relationship with my husband, and there was absolutely no reason in this world why he would want to hold me. I don't think we realised the real seriousness of the case. We thought that it was just so stupid that it would all get thrown out. I always felt that feeling deep inside of what I felt for how much I liked and how much I wanted to be with them. Luckily, I think how much I loved to excite that feeling right from the very, very early beginnings. So as much as there may have been times of frustration, exasperation, why can't we just go out? Why can't we just do that? It'd be so easy to get to know each other, that was impossible. But I think it's one way, especially in some ways, it was a very old-fashioned courtship. And we would talk a lot and we would laugh a lot, and which a lot of touching, holding hand and just, stroking, but no kissing. We were getting closer. There was affection between us, although it wasn't this slobbering, kissing, groping, all that. I was also extremely hard for me to kiss Tiffany. I'm not used to kissing women at that stage. It was obvious you can't kiss me yet. I knew he loved me, and he would do anything for me. And that was nice. Let's say it took 2.5 years before I felt that our relationship had gone to the point where I could say, would you marry me? Music. Now I think the only way to do it is do it properly, so I had to get an engagement ring. I'd find a nice place to propose to her, and she's bound to say yes. Say right, the stuff I can't snip out. We can go down this little pup in the Bleeding Heart yard. Wonderful night. Then, nice little restaurant called the Bleeding Heart. Lovely little place. We're having a little chit-chats, and I knew Stephanie couldn't be there for long. She had to get back, see what he said wasn't, I'd like, how do you feel about marriage? And I feel about children. Would you be able to, consider settling down and us listening? And I said yes, I would at some point in my life. And then he talked more. And I knew as a proposal, and he said, Tina, would he consider ever putting up with me? I showed you the ring. I said, will you marry me? And she said no by June. I decided that was it. We were going to be together. And Martin drove all the way down and collected me. And on the way I was thinking, well, this is closing one door, and I had my whole life to look forward to. Now this was the start as we were driving through it. I mean, I could see the sea view, and I thought, oh, how pretty. So I was really quite excited and looking forward to it. The vision I had in my mind was obviously somewhere quite nice, upper class, maybe clean and tidy. I thought, well, he's a policeman. He's got to have a good house and good prospects. As we drove through it, just sort of declined. We sort of passed the nice houses, and we went into a less nice area. I was shocked, very shocked, because where we were was almost like a council estate, and I found this quite confusing. And I even remember saying to Mrs. Your House, and he said, oh yeah, and I said, oh, I've left a good area, good job. And I thought, what if I walked into music? The first thing I noticed is that wasn't a lot of furniture. There was no oven, there was no mind. Come over, there was no washing machine, no fridge, there was a bed, and that was it. He explained to me that because he was an undercover policeman and he works in the drug raids, that it was important for him to work among people that take drugs, and it's better to work in the midst of it, and obviously nobody knows he said undercover policeman, and so he keeps an eye on all the neighbours. And I thought, well, wow, this guy has the guts to really live in it. I just thought it was very brave. It's not forever. You're talking about 6 months. We're going to be in the Lake District. Then we're going to start on our life and our family together, so just make things work. By the time Joanne moved in with Martin, he told her he was no longer working full-time as an undercover policeman because of his back injury. Obviously, with the accident, he had been taken off the beat, so we would maybe go to the police station. Once a week he would go in, drop some paperwork off. I'd stay outside and he'd come back and we would drive off, and he's done his little thing. You can imagine how hard it is for somebody working as a policeman. And then, suddenly it all stopped. My mum and dad were so supportive that obviously with Martin's job coming to an end, that they decided to give us birth and got a job at the pub. I would help out and Martin would work there. So he would still have an active role in us sort of looking out for the pub, looking out for people there, who was drinking or driving. I suppose you just can't stop being a policeman, can you, overnight? So I could understand that by October, Joanne had been with Martin for 10 months. Then one morning she got a telephone call at the Seagull pub. It was from my friend Alison. Now she had been at the pub the night before, and she had driven home, and she'd been stopped by the police and had been done for drinking and driving. She was adamant with policemen that it was Martin Baxter that had called in and got her stopped. She told me that the policeman had said at the station that they had never heard of Martin Baxter. I didn't believe her. Jonathan didn't know anything at all about my lifestyle. He knew my uncle was wealthy and he was very strict. Very little was said about Stephanie's background, so she kept that part all very quiet. Certainly our uncle was a very powerful person. I found out he has dealings with the Pope's financing. I had a friend of mine at work who knew a little bit about Stephanie and was dropping a few hints, because it got to be known that we were sort of an item. And he said she's a princess, I'm in one of the little chats. And Stefan, I used to say, come on, snaps. Yeah, let's hear a bit more about you, Someone's been saying you're a princess. She was a very coy. What Stephanie had not told John was that she came from one of the wealthiest families in Ghana. Her mother was a queen, Nana Buhima II, and Stephanie herself was destined to be Nana Buhima III. The reason why I didn't talk to John too much about how wealthy we were, or my background, or the fact that I was destined to be a queen, was because I knew the kind of person that I was supposed to be marrying. Have to be somebody bridge, somebody for high standing in the community, and somebody who's accepting of what I was supposed to be, which was a queen. Is definitely who I knew was actually a princess destined to be queen. He was with me all this time, sitting across me in other work a fight, and I hadn't the faintest idea about it. That's intriguing. I wanted to be totally sure that I felt strongly about it, as I knew he felt about me, because for me I needed to go through that time to make completely sure that I was going to give up everything that I was brought up to be, and for Jonathan Music. Around November 17th, I invited her again straight off to work, only for a short period of time. So I proposed to marry her, and she said yes this time. And I was elated. I was completely elated. I just took throwing, and I said I had to go. And again, I was expected. Him said we just got engaged, But no, he said, okay, then I went. No, I know I had to go home because my uncle was coming home, and I just thought, he's going to be great. It's going to be fun. But I didn't realise there'd be a few more hurdles that would have to go through. I refused to believe her. I thought she's trying to warn me on. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go and find out by myself. So I asked my brother to come with me, and we drove to the police station. And I went in there and I said of you, do you have a policeman, Mum, back to working here? They said no. And I tried to think, well, he's undercover, so perhaps they're not allowed to tell me, or they've got their wires crossed. I thought the only way I'm going to get the truth is by going to his grandmother's house. My brother drove me down when we got there. I said, I've just got a few questions to ask you. And what I asked first, I said, is Martin a policeman? And I remember his grandmother sort of chuckling and saying, no, Martin's not a policeman. He's on income support. I said, are you sure? She said, Martin is not a policeman. And I said, well, has he been to Northern Ireland? When his front friend got shot. And she sort of laughed again and she said, no, Martin was only in training for 6 months. He's never been in the army. I then went back to the police station and I said, I need you to give me assistance to the house and get all my stuff out there. I could not bear to walk in that house by myself and do it because the first thing that came in my mind, oh my God, who have I been living with? And he walked in the house and Martin was sitting on the chair, very still with his head down. And the policeman said to him, do you understand that it is a criminal offence to impersonate a policeman? There was no reply, and he asked him again, and he nodded. And I was just shocked. I then went upstairs, grabbed everything I could, and just had to get out of there because I didn't know where I was. And the policeman said, do you realise you've now lost all your privileges to Neighbourhood Watch? Because that's all he was, and I walked out. I'm after. John asked me to marry him. I started to worry, obviously, because then I told my mother, and I told my auntie with the chime most important people in my life, and the third most important person in my life was the hardest person to tell. That was my uncle. Actually, what I said was I was a chicken. I said I met this young man that I wanted to go out with, and he just looked at me. And when he said he told him, and then I think I said he was English. That wasn't him, what he wanted to hear. And I stood there and he said, how's it going further? I said, yes, uncle. I just took out the ring and showed him. He looked at the ring, and again he flew off the handle. I listened, and very quietly, and he asked me to go to Ghana. I was on a plane 2 days later, and my uncle had a party at his house. It was very strange because everybody was paying a lot of attention to me, and I couldn't figure out why. I began to think it's because I was getting engaged, John. So they all understood, and they're all happy, and it'll hit home when I got up to dance with this young man, and everybody I started clapping and was nude and wide with nothing. My uncle was basically hoping that I would just notice what I was giving up all these wonderful young men, very wealthy, and of the same standing as we were, and then just not one to go back. And I was distraught, and just a feeling of not seeing John again. It was enough for me, and somehow I knew if I didn't leave, I probably would be made to stay there. I think I maybe had one phone call from her first of all, which you've got there safely and everything. And then, the next phone call I had, well, from home, was after some party. She said went very wrong, that the uncle had arranged her to meet more, the eligible men around. And she wanted to come home straight away and to meet me at the airport. Oh, definitely. It's always nice seeing anybody walking off a plane that's near walking off a plane back to me. Or what absolutely wonderful it was beginning of that life. Really. Because at that point, everything changed. I went this system every single day. It was on demand, and that's quite hard to do, and you've got a business to run. But every day, I was up there, and I don't know. I don't think Mita first got through if we hadn't seen each other every day at David Gibson's plea trial in April. He pleaded not guilty and was released on bail on condition. He lived in the matrimonial home with Wendy, the wife he was accused of soliciting to murder. Because of this bail condition, Wendy and David believed the case would not go to court, but they were wrong. It wasn't an easy time going to the court because we were still obviously together, and then we get up in the morning and walk the dogs, and then we'd have to go off to court together. And every day that week it was all in the headlines of the paper, which was awful. Foreman offers $20,000 to work colleague to kill his wife. They weren't sure at first whether they were going to be allowed to play the tape, but then they did, and obviously everybody was shocked. Well, you definitely want me to top her. Yeah, I don't like me, because I think Amazing might not go soon find another wife. From the witness box, David denied soliciting to murder Wendy and said he still loved his wife. He claimed the other man was nicknamed Emmy because he was rumoured to have tape recorded a number of people, David told the court. He did not like the other man and reiterated his claim that he thought he was going to be blackmailed. I mean, if you want somebody killed, you're not going to go to your arch enemy and say to them, "You killed my wife." Wouldn't happen that way. Wendy believed David, but would the jury? Music Friday, October 20th, was the final day of the trial, and it was just a summing up, and I thought the judge was quite favourable for David. For they asked, before that they asked to listen to the tape again, for the jury, when out, make sure she's there. I don't want to end up looking after a vegetable. And then that's when they said they couldn't read your decision. Oh God, so we had to go out again. Oh, Dave and I, we just sort of looked at each other, and we said we ate, we said we were hugging each other a night, and we both said whatever happens, we've got to be strong for each other. And I promised him I would be. When the jury came back in for the second time, they didn't take me long. They took about 20 minutes, and was all good. Maybe good. Then they said that it was guilty. I just died, part of me died. I thought, how can you find him guilty? And then the judge, I figure you recollect the judge sort of is saying some things. And then he said, I sentence you to 8 years, and I just total disbelief. My life's changed because of what's happened. I'm extremely lonely. You cannot imagine the type of loneliness that I feel. I haven't given up on my family, they've given up on me. I unfortunately don't see my oldest son, and very sad that I lost my grandchildren. Hopefully, when my grandson Sarah the older, I'd be able to speak to them. But it does hurt. Love is blind. I saw what I chose to say. I wanted to see the house and the name district. I saw the white wedding dress. I saw the little 2 kids in the garden. That's what I saw, me and him. That's fully happy. Several weeks after Joanne moved her things out of the house, she went round to see Martin again. I wanted him to be truthful and honest with me, and tell me that he had formulated this big story to impress me. He loved me so much that he felt somebody on income support I wouldn't accept when I arrived. He said, I know you find all this very difficult to understand, but I've got my policeman friend here to confirm that I was really in Northern Ireland. My best friend did get shot and killed, and that I am really an undercover policeman. And the reason they can't reveal such information is that they would blow my cover, and I think it was in that moment I thought, no, you're still lying. I realised at that moment it was over if Martin had told me the truth and said, I've made this all up. Let's start again. I would have married him. I've been happy to, because I loved him. I've never been able to trust anybody again. It doesn't matter what they say. It's almost like I've got to double check everything. I quiz them. I try to remember exactly what they're saying. And in case they changed the story later on, he took everything. It took me one main thing that you need in a relationship, and that is trust, once we had broken up. I went on the rebound, the first guy that would listen to me. I got involved with, I became pregnant and had twins, but I also realised that I got myself into a very, very bad relationship. Joanne is living once again in Dorset, bringing up her twins, Shannon and Jordan, her own. I believe that my 2 children have kept me together as a person. You've given me something to look forward to, and things are looking really, really up, and in the last 8 months, things are starting to come together. I'm trying to rebuild my life. When I have, maybe one day, I will perhaps meet somebody and get married. Steph and I now have been married for 12 years. It was our 12th anniversary this year, so I've known her for years before that, so 16 years. But yeah, 12 years married often. That look I got from across the room in a restaurant from Jonathan, that changed my whole life. This is what I was meant to be. I believe that strongly, of course. And I remember when I was that 9-10 years old, and I think it was one of our servants, or my aunt said she felt that I'd been married an Englishman, because no Canyon man would put up with me. When Stefan and I started to get together, we sort of found out we make babies quite easily. Not long one popped along. Alexandra is now 12, and not long after that, we had another little bundle of joy. Natalia, it's now 11, just turned no 10. Sorry, she's got a mum. Yeah, you're right. And after that, we had another one, Jonathan Sight, coming up tonight. And not long after that, Dominique, little bundle of joy, who's now 3, and quite recently yet another addition 18 months ago. Cameron Steph used to joke about 6, sometimes used to joke about 12, nice to cry. We love having a big family. It always made me nothing. So, yeah, it's wonderful, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm very, very proud going out with me. They're always happy as well. My children are always happy. If it wasn't for my stretch marks, I'd have more. Always make sure we have time for each other. We'd made a pact to love each other and make it work. It wasn't easy. Officially, we're not going overspend. And you'll get the critical kills. He's still trying to teach me back to money. So trying out to talk heirs, I learnt a lot about housekeeping and cleaning. I'm a better mother than I am a cleaner. No, the king, I don't like that part now. Foreign business, boring, be on the other side. I know that the difference is that yes, I haven't got any servants to do it. Who me, when I compare that lifestyle, it's very, very different. And as much as I had a lot to give up, I would never swap their love I have in my family for anything else. If you see something, you want it, you got to follow it. If you give up, you're going to get yourself to blame. Yes, you don't do what makes you happy. You'd be miserable for the rest of your life, wondering it's not worth it. As I say exactly, it's not a dress rehearsal. You got one life. Yeah, I've made all the right decisions. After icing on the cake. I think like a lot of people when they hear the story, they just think, I'm some silly woman that's madly and blindly in love. I am madly in love and not blindly. I'm not a stupid teenager in love. I'm frightened that I won't find anybody else I know. What Dave and I've got is something very, very special. He knows he was stupid, but 8 years is a long time for being stupid, isn't it? I go to see David every Thursday, but the night before is always the same. You think I'd be used to it now, but I still get so excited I can't sleep. I just live for those days. Nothing I've ever part us again. We will be together forever, and it's what we both want. I love him, but I know that he loves me just as much, and he's told me that he's never loved anybody the same way he loves me, and he knows that we're right for each other. We've always known that did lots of laughing, lots of talking, lots of holding hands, really nice. Looking forward to the next one. There, it is a love story. You can't find anybody that's more in love with their husband than I am. I'm just very, very lucky woman to have found somebody that I love as much as I do. And it's reciprocated. I think that's lucky we've gone through a bad spot at the moment, but it won't be forever. And then everyone's going to be really jealous of me because I'm going to be the happiest person in the world. They asked me how I knew my true something here inside.